So what does it mean to be a grinder? Let me put it to you this way. I once had a coach ask me how I get my kids ready for a championship game. You know what I told him? I don't. It's after all the initial excitement and adrenaline has worn off, when the real game, or in your case, when the real hunt gets tough. That's what I want them to be ready for. It's easy to go hard for the first quarter, or even for the first inning, or for the first 2 days of a hunt. It's what comes next, overcoming, pounding, and finding a way that separates the cream from the milk, y'all. On today's show, it's all about no excuse elk hunting, grinding it, and internal grit. We're going to help you look at those tough situations and possible reasons for failure. And we're going to help you turn your frown upside down, finding reasons and solutions to turn problems into maximum opportunities. Those topics, along with our ElkBros shout outs and letters from our ElkBros mailbox. So my friends, pull up a chair, adjust your volumes just right, and welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com, with your host Gilbert Ornelas and elk hunting coach Joe Gilly. You want to hunt elk, and they live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 35 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
Hello there, everyone. If it's your first time with us, glad to have you. Hope you enjoy our show. And for those blue collar hunters following our show and grinding it out with us every week, welcome back to Elk Camp. I'm Gilbert Ornelas, the host of your show, coming to you from Spring, Texas, and from New Mexico, your elk hunting coach, Joe Gilly, and none other from Katy, Texas, the leader of the Venezuelan mafia, Luis Gonzalez.
Yeah. Hello, guys.
Did you have that arm wrestling match yet, bud? Huh?
No need. He already lost.
Conceding.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a second. There's a problem here, y'all.
What's up?
So, yeah, he's in Katy. You're there in Spring. Got two Texas boys. The way I do the math, there's only this one New Mexico boy here. So, man, I'm going to have to do something to
Even the odds there?
Yeah, I need to even up the odds on this, bro. We need to do something.
Are you kidding me? Chav, how are you doing?
Two New Mexico guys.
Yes. This is so cool, Chav.
Are you there, Chav?
Yep, I'm here. I can hear you.
Hey, man. How's it going, brother?
Good. Good to see you guys again.
Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too, Chav. Man, what a cool surprise. I wasn't expecting
we got the Godfather with us tonight, Joe. You didn't tell me.
Oh, dude. I was like, buddy, man, I've wanted to bring him on so bad, and I've had to be isolated from him. And today him and I got together, and we were like, dude, we're going to pull you in just like we pull everybody else in. So
that's fantastic.
That's neat, man.
Yeah, didn't even tell me the wolf was showing up, brother. That's a little Pulp Fiction plug for you guys that don't know what the wolf is. If you don't know what it is, go watch the movie.
Yeah.
So, Chav, tell everybody, man, how you doing, bud?
Well, it's I'm in pretty good. I can't complain considering the situation. I think physically, upper body, I think I'm there where I want to be.
Good.
And the walking is taking some time, but I'm able to take 3 unassisted steps so far, but it's coming along. I'm like a giant toddler. I keep telling everybody, no hair, and no diapers, and I walk
good
like
on
a
you,
toddler.
man.
So, otherwise, things are going pretty good. Through this adventure, I met a lot of outstanding people just everywhere.
That's fantastic.
And I know a lot of strangers or people that I don't know from the podcast have reached out, and I'm very appreciative. And there's a lot of good people in this world. There's a few rotten apples, but I think for the most part, a lot of good people. blessed to live in this country, and I'm blessed to have friends like you guys. Just amazing.
Yeah, that's why, dude, man, we got a quad going on tonight, man.
That is so
And
cool,
time.
man.
Well,
for our listeners, this is the first time ever we've had 4 of us on together. We haven't had Chav on since, well, I think the last time, Chav, that I had you on, I jinxed you because we did the podcast. Everybody was like, oh, I was so excited to hear Chav. And then 4 days later, we were back in the hospital, man. Yeah, I mean,
Oh yeah. I'm done with. I'm actually done with all the chemo now. It's just a matter of waiting for definitive results on May 6th, I believe, and then I can start working on what I need to work on. I had my last spinal tap yesterday, and she did a good job. Didn't feel a thing.
That's fantastic.
So done with all that. Done with all that.
Yeah.
That's good, man. That's answered prayer for sure.
Well, so to make them feel even better, the best medicine after a spinal tap is let's talk about some elk, y'all.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, we're going to get right after it. I mean, you guys know what time it is.
Shout out.
Time for the ElkBros shout outs. If you're new to our show, these are just some of the shout outs for few cities with the most listeners topping our charts this week.
And Chav, I'm going to start first of all here because you guys don't know this, but I sent Chav another script because we were planning. So he's going to be reading out the stuff that has Joe on there. But I actually had some fellas that we want to put on here, and I want to do a shout out to actually 2 young grinders, man, that just blew my mind. Got some letters. And I got one from Paul Snort, and we're going to do a shout out to our youngest grinder out there, 3-year-old Hunter Snowart. And Paul wrote me a letter, and he said, I love y'all show, and my 3-year-old son Hunter as well. My son now gets into the truck and asks for ElkBros, man. He says
that is so cool.
Oh, it's crazy. He says whether he really understands or not, it still puts a smile on my face. And I'm going to, I want y'all to see what this guy's doing. This is 3-year-old Hunter here, and you guys can see you can see this, right? Okay.
Yeah,
I want you to watch 3-year-old Hunter and.
Oh man,
dude, he's already making good tone.
Let me play that one more time because I think I kind of blew the audio over here. So
No,
here we
you
go.
right now.
I've heard worse bulls.
And I remember when I got this letter, I told him, I was like, dude, man, he sounds better than Luis already.
I was gonna say this is embarrassing,
Look,
man.
dude, I want to note that I did not say that. Okay, I did not
You were
prompt
thinking
Joe to
it though.
say that.
You were thinking it, and you sinned for it too. That's messed up. But I was thinking it too, so I'll let you two pass.
So,
hey, Joe, I want to do something really cool for that young man. If you can get his address, I'd like to send him a hat. So he can have one of our hats. So if you get his
awesome,
address,
bro.
man, I'll purchase him a hat and you can send it to Hunter.
Paul, you listening out there, bud? Sounds like Hunter's got a hat coming his way, man. So
Amen.
he can wear that when he gets in the truck. And today, I had missed because of all of the stuff went on, and I try to listen. All you listeners out there, I work hard at answering all your questions and all your emails, and somehow or another, Joe Emmons had sent me an email back in March, and somehow it fell through the crack. And we're going to actually have him on our ElkBro letters today, but I sent him a letter to apologize for that, and he sent me back some photos, him and his son on the elk hunt this last year. They scored, and I'm going to show you the picture of this so you guys can see it. This is Joe and Parker Emmons.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
wow.
Joe and Parker Emmons, man.
What a beautiful bull.
Isn't that cool?
Yep.
And
very cool.
he also, Parker, does some calling as well.
Fantastic.
And what I want you to see is this guy. This is without a diaphragm call on here. I want you to see what this guy does, man.
Check out their channel and subscribe. So now I'm going to do a bugle, and I don't have a reed in my mouth, and I'm using this tube, and it doesn't have anything. So here I go.
Are you kidding me right now, dude?
Chuckling off, man. That's
Are you kidding me?
What it's like to be young, man.
Holy crap, that is impressive, man.
What it's like to be young. Logan used to be able to do that too, man. He used to be able to just go.
Well, but see, that video was taken when he was 9 years old,
Right.
and Parker is now 12 years old. And so the first thing I asked was, I was like, Joe, can Parker still do that, man? He said, yeah, he practices it every day.
Wow.
And and we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to bring this up again down at the bottom when we hit the letters. But one of the things that Joe wants to do with Parker is he wants to involve his son more in the hunt, and he was asking about ways that he can do that. And then I tell you what, Parker, bro, so proud of you. You sound awesome. You're killing it. And I don't think I really am envious of what these two are going to do in the future, because they have a lot of memories and exciting moments lined out,
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's pretty cool to see that. How's that for a start? Well, we got Chav coming on. We got a 3-year-old ElkBros. We got a 12-year-old that is like that guy's like a master, man, with the voice already.
Like I said, husbands kiss your wives, wives kiss your husbands, keep your broadhead sharp and your powder dry. And we'll see you next week right here.
We're done, huh?
Drop the mic, bro.
Drop the mic. That's it.
Drop the mic. Wow.
Well, we're going to
Awesome,
get to our
Joe.
shout outs, and I've been waiting to say this for a long time. Chav, take it away, bro.
Okay, topping our charts this week. It wasn't until 1997 that our top listening city was incorporated after a history as a hot springs resort. Near the mouth of the Jordan River, there are natural hot springs that inspired early settlers in the area to create a resort. The resort was opened in 1884 and has several buildings and amusement park facilities, and was a very popular location for tourists and visitors. At its height, an early Disney of Utah, you could say. What once was an incredible resort has all but disappeared to a trail that leads to heating waters in Saratoga Springs, Utah.
Utah in the house.
Man, Saratoga Springs, Utah in the house.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
hot
awesome.
springs. They have hot springs.
I hear
there,
they got
mineral
some giant
springs.
bulls up there in Utah, Joe.
Oh my goodness, man!
Nevada, Utah. I hear they got some big ones.
One of our grinders, Mike Wilson up there, man, is just he's chomping at the bit to be able to get out there. So I tell you, I one day maybe.
Yeah, buddy. That's like a bucket list thing for me, to be able to hunt in every state, be able to hunt like September through the end of October and hunt every state union, that has an elk herd. That's kind of a bucket list thing for me to do.
Wow.
I got to get busy.
Yeah,
I've been able to hunt in 2 states. There's a whole bunch more, but hey, man, you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Next up, Joe, named the Salt City. A grain elevator in our top listener city is half-mile long and holds 46 million bushels in its 1,000 bins. But get this, the first United Methodist Church here was built in 1874 during the time of the Great Grasshopper Plagues. As a result, thousands of grasshoppers are mixed into foundation in Hutchinson, Kansas.
Hutchinson.
Hutchinson, Kansas.
Yes, sir.
Well, I wonder if that church bounces any, man. All them grasshoppers and stuff.
Yeah.
I
That
don't
joke.
know. I know it tore up a bunch of cops.
But if my daughter's listening, she's like, "Dad joke."
Yeah.
Dad joke." All right, Luis.
Come and take it. This defiant statement sparked a revolution that would forever define the spirit of our next stop listener's town, where the fight for Texas liberty began. The first shots of the Texas revolutions rang out here, and its people played a pivotal role in helping the Lone Star State gain its freedom from Mexico. Referred to as the Lexington of Texas, its pride in its nickname is still strong today. Gonzales, Texas. It had to be Gonzales. That's right.
Gonzales, Texas. Been there many, many days, brother.
Many
me
days,
too.
huh?
Yeah, beautiful town.
Oh, what's the best place to eat in Gonzales there, Gilbert?
There's a steakhouse there right on the Brazos River. I can't remember the name of the steakhouse, but I know right where it's at.
I figured, man, Gilbert, if there's a good place, you've tried it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. There's another good place. There's a little Shell station there. I think it's on 71 or 77 right there. That's got some really good kolaches too. They're homemade.
All right.
Bohemians in there, they know how to make those kolaches.
What is that, bro?
A kolache?
Yeah.
You never had a kolache, Joe?
What?
Oh, man, brother. I got to bring some to elk camp next year.
Chav, you know what
on the list.
How do you say that?
I've never heard of it either. So
Kolache.
Kolache.
So it's a pastry about that big. Okay, it's about that big.
Oh, okay.
It looks like that donut looks like. It's about that long. It's got chocolate on the top and it's got cream in the center of it. They call them a long john. Yeah, a long john. Okay, well it's about that size, but inside it doesn't have the chocolate on the top. It's really awesome bread, and inside it's got a big piece of jalapeno cheese sausage in it. And
really?
You talk so about good, bro.
Never heard of it.
And look, they put all kinds of things. They put boudin in them now. They put, sausage. They put bacon, cheese, egg.
Yeah, tons of different flavors. But man, it's so good, so good.
That's like in West by God, Virginia. they have a thing called a pepperoni roll. Mm-hmm. And my son-in-law made those for me. He's from West Virginia, and it's funny, some of these unique things like that are out there. So
yes, sir.
I got to try one of them puppies, man.
Oh yeah, man. We'll bring some to elk camp for sure.
It's a good idea.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, I mean they're great for breakfast and just snacking around on. They're really good.
Cool.
Well, next up, if you're in Minnesota and looking for a scary experience this Halloween, you can take part in our next city's 38th annual Haunted Woods Trail. Not me. In the event attracts about 3,000 people, and there are tricks and treats and 300 carved pumpkins that guarantee a scary great time in Rosemount, Minnesota.
Rosemount, Minnesota.
Minnesota again.
Yes,
in
sir.
our
I tell
house
you, man.
every week.
Every week, man. Minnesota, boy, listening. That's so cool. And Gilbert, what's up with that, man? You ain't scared of little old ghost, are you?
Don't do the spirit stuff, Joe. That's a real realm, and people don't understand it. You don't want none of that on you, Joe.
Last but not least, Cabez.
Okay, if you're in our next city and you find yourself at the Prohibition Pig Restaurant, get yourself some poutine. Is that the right pronunciation?
Yeah, that's it, poutine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you never had French fries with gravy on them, you're missing out. And after the salty food, it might be a great idea to try something sweet, because this city is the home of Vermont's ice cream giant. If you have ever heard of Chunky Monkey, Cherry Garcia, and Chip Happens, visit Ben & Jerry's factory right here in Waterbury, Vermont.
Waterbury, Vermont. Chip Happens in
Chip Happens, man. I'm going to use that one. Chip
Happens. I love Ben & Jerry, man. They came up with some really cool names of their ice creams and
Carmel
stuff like
Sutra
that.
And all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah, man. 30 Sanchez. I mean, wow. It's crazy stuff they've come up with. But, man, it's eye catcher.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
man,
sir.
and right there in Vermont, and it's funny because it's Waterbury, and we actually went to this part of the country. Our daughter took us out and ordered some poutine for us, and I was like, "What the heck is that?" You know, and it sounds, I don't know, French to me. You know, poutine. I don't know, and then all of a sudden they bring out French fries with gravy on them. I was like, "Oh." We call them fries with gravy.
Yeah. Or dirty fries.
Dirty fries. There we go. But
Yeah.
man, it's good. It was really good.
Yeah.
If you haven't had it,
Absolutely.
you haven't had it. Hey guys, so tonight, your intro, Gilbert, was just dynamite tonight because today's topic is no excuses elk hunting, where our goal of the show is to talk about those things that hunters see as a reason for failure. Some people call them excuses. I mean, our track kids were great. I think, remember, Chav, there was a T-shirt, it's too windy, too hot, too
Yeah.
cold, you know, all of those. And what we want to do is we want to take those, some of them, and kind of debunk them a little bit, because there's a lot of times people think that, hey, this is why I'm not getting it done. We want to kind of debunk those myths, and instead of just talking about how, you know, those are excuses, what we want to do is find solutions and let people know how some of those are actually opportunities. All
Yeah.
right.
And embrace the grind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Embrace the grind, man.
Yeah.
Because that's what it gets down to.
And that's the thing too, is look, when we talk about our grinders, man, we talk about, and you people do it in work every day. No, look what's happening right now in this country, man. I mean, things that hit you, and you get up the next day, you put your shoes on, and you go back out and you get after it. You do what you can every day, and that's the same thing when we talk about our grinders out there. Whether it's the, you know, after day 4 and things are wearing on you and things just haven't happened, you stick with your game plan. You go out there and do what you're supposed to do. You go look for those animals and you find a way to make it happen. You work your butt off. You use some of your insights, maybe change the game plan, maybe go to plan A, B, or C, but you don't give up on it. You don't give up on it. So that's what we talk about our grinders. It's a mentality. It's an attitude. You know, like I said, as soon as I put my hand around the grip of my bow and I look towards those woods, I feel every time in this here heart that I'm going to kill an animal, that I can take a bull on that day and make it happen. So that's what we're talking about with our grinders attitude, man. That's what we're wanting our people within our realm to understand and what we try to portray. So when we look at some of the things that are out there that a lot of people will look at, yeah, I mean, you can look at a calendar, and right away you look at a calendar for the hunt, and some guys will get a negative attitude about things.
Sure.
I mean, any ideas on what you guys think some of those might be?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that jumps out of my mind, Joe, is, you know, guys look at it and see when the dark of the moon is because they don't want to hunt in a full moon. I'm like, hunting in a full moon is one of the best times in the world to hunt.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of glass half empty or glass half full
Right.
for me. I've hunted both. Would I prefer to hunt the backside of that moon? For sure. But man, I'm telling you, you can make hay while the moon's shining all the time if you know what to do.
So what's the problem? What's the problem with a full moon during the hunt?
Typically elk, you know, will feed longer down below in that moon, right? So they're going to tarry a little bit longer, but it'll also put them in the trees quicker too as daylight comes. Right. So you know, you have to adjust your pattern of how you're going to hunt your herd of elk that you're hunting according to that, right? So you need to be in the woods a lot earlier. It doesn't mean that they're not down there, because they're going to be there. They're creatures of habit. They're slaves to their bellies. And just because you got a full moon doesn't mean they're going to quit rutting or quit, you know, looking for food or quit looking for cows.
Yes, absolutely not.
And at the end of the day, look, if you have an option and you'd rather hunt in the days in which you don't have the full moon, great. But a
Sometimes
lot
it
of people
don't
don't
work
have
out
that
that way.
luxury. So
Exactly.
moon or no moon, you're out there hunting, and if you're passionate enough about it, you're gonna make it. Make lemons out of the lemons you're given, and make it worth your time, and enjoy the hunt as much as you can. I mean, at the end of the day, you're out there, and it's something that you longed for so long. Might
Yeah.
as well just enjoy it and make the best out of it.
Yeah, and Joe always, we hunt early, so it really doesn't matter. September 1st, we're going to be in the woods, so it
Right.
don't matter where the dadgum if it hair lips the governor.
Yeah.
I mean, hurricanes, it didn't matter. I mean, we're going to be in the middle of the woods come September the 1st. I've been there, done that, and now we got a T-shirt on. At the end of the day, you got to, and it didn't matter what the moon was going to be. And as a matter of fact, that year it was in the full moon. So
Yep.
it didn't really matter. And we don't, we want to hunt closer to the equinox if we can, but there are mitigating circumstances too that help drive us to where we are. Joe guides in the middle of the month. So at
Right.
the end of the day, he's got to take advantage of the early part of the hunt.
And to your point, Beto, there is no perfect circumstances for a hunt.
Agreed.
And there's been so many times in which every element has been perfect. You look at the weather is perfect, the temperature is perfect, the moon is perfect, the day is perfect, no rain, everything looks perfect. You get out there, nothing.
Been on some really good ranches. Been on some really good ranches in the middle of the blasted full part of the rut, October 5th through October 7th.
Yeah.
I mean, it is going bonkers, and it's so hard to get on a bull. It just is,
And how many times have you been wanting to get out there or not been wanting to get out there because of all the excuses that we're going to be talking about today, and then you finally decide for some reason to just finally convince yourself to get out there, and guess what happens that day? That's the day where it happens. How many times does that happen?
I told Gilbert. Go ahead, Kyle.
A big advantage that you do have during a full moon period is you can get out there even earlier and locate where they're at and get an idea where they're heading.
That's right.
Yeah, because understand something too is that, we talk to people about night bugling, and elk in a full moon situation are going to be screaming their head off at night. Like you said, man, they're going to keep going. Well, so what if they go in the trees earlier? Because guys, it's in the trees that you're going to kill those critters, man. You're not going to kill them out in an open meadow. So now for a rifle hunter,
Story. Yeah,
a little bit of a problem. You got to change a little bit, and you got to find those transition areas where they're coming through that are more open, where there's a little more open canopy, so that you can get that. Or you better make sure that you're on them at daylight, or you're going to get that golden 15 minutes before it gets dark, right? Yeah. But the key thing is remember, half the battle of killing an elk is finding them. And if they're screaming at night in a full moon, you can locate them things in the moon. Shoot, we have traveled with them. Remember, Chaff?
Yep, I remember.
we traveled with them, boogers, because we had a real tough hunt. It was difficult. A lot of the things that you're going to hear that we're going to talk about down here below. And it got to the point where I said, look, guys, grab your stuff. We're going to go sleep down in the bottoms, man. We're going to go sleep where the elk are. We're going to find us a drainage. We're going to sleep in the bottom of it till they cross the top of it, because their scent's going to come down. We're going to reverse the game on them. We're going to smell them from the thermals. And so we did that. We went and slept down. And in fact, you guys have been with us where we parked the bike over in that area, down in one of those areas. And we slept in that grass down on the bottom. About 11:30, I caught wind of them, woke me up in my sleep, smelling the elk. We got up out of bed. We went up the drainage, found the elk screaming at night. We stayed with them from midnight until daylight the next morning. They would move, we would move. They would stop and feed, we would sleep. We would just sit there with our back against a tree and sleep, staying enough distance that we knew where those critters were, and we were on them at daylight. So that's critical. And remember, again, you're not going to kill them out in the parks. So if they're getting up in the trees earlier, well, great. you're going to now parallel and stay with those animals till they get to their bedding destination. And now you're back in high cotton because now you're where they're going to be for the next 8 hours. So that's just something that it really doesn't matter if you get that additional half hour in the morning or not,
Yeah.
because you just need to locate them and then follow them up into the trees. So the full moon to me, man, like Chav said, man, at night you can walk around and you don't have to worry about falling in a hole or something like that. It's pretty cool like that. So yeah, that's one thing. Anything else, y'all?
No, Joe, I would like to add that, look, just with the whole topic, right? I mean,
Right.
and I think we were kind of discussing that a little bit even before we started our chapter
show.
today,
Mm-hmm.
our show. One of the conversations I have with people that, that talk to me about coming here and, what are the biggest difficulties? And, they talk about, the preparation. They talk about the walking, the 10 to 12 miles a day and so on and so forth. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, yeah, that all can be rough. But to me, the hardest thing to do is the moment from which my phone goes off and with the alarm clock in the morning at 3:50, 4 o'clock in the morning up until I'm actually on that bike ready to go out there and start hunting.
Or on
That
your
time,
feet,
yeah, on your feet,
walking out of camp.
dressed up and ready to go. That time period is to me the hardest to overcome, and especially like we were talking about on third day, fourth day, when you've already taken a beating on the previous 2 days. And
yeah, man, you've had a solid ass whipping the first 2 or 3 days.
Man, I mean,
you ain't heard a peep or you ain't seen a peep.
Right. And then it's so cold, and it could be cold in the mornings, and then you're just right there tucked in. Finally,
can't be
found
cold
that
in your
spot.
tent, boy. You got a heater, man.
You finally found that spot
Joe.
that is warm, and you're just right there, and you're like, that the alarm going off means you now have to get yourself exposed, get out there, get naked, and get dressed again. And then
I don't know what's going on in their
It's
tent, Joe. I don't sleep naked. Man, we're going off unleashed already, Joe.
You said you get naked because you're changing.
Look,
but anyway.
What Luis is saying is exactly, Gilbert, what you were talking about in your intro. When somebody walks up to you and asks you, Luis, how do you get yourself up for the 4th through the 7th through the 8th or the 10th day of an elk hunt? And, again, what I told Luis earlier, what I tell anybody else is you need to take you a friggin' piece of paper and write 350 on it and tape it right there above where you can see it on your tent when you wake up in the morning, because that's what it's going to be when you're done with this. It's going to be 350 friggin' days till you get to come back out there and do that again. You've been waiting all this time, man. I see people on Instagram every day right now. I mean, you see things, can't wait till September, can't wait till, man, I've been seeing that since doggone October, man, when September was over. People like, I can't wait to get back out. I can't wait to get back out. And they're prepping and they're doing all this stuff, and they're buying gear, they're spending money, they're working their butt off, they're losing weight, they're getting in shape for 10 days, if that. Some guys it's only 5, some by 7. Shoot, some people might only be able to do 3.
Correct.
So every morning that you open those eyes, you should be telling yourself, man, this is all I have,
That's right.
And
well, it's the preparation that you put in. I've said this time and time. Part of me is I don't let you guys down. Y'all done a tremendous amount of work to get us to where we're at, be successful. And I'm talking especially about our guides, right? And then also guys in camp. I mean, how many times, case in point, Joe, we talked about this earlier, you and I probably could have knocked 2 bulls. You knocked a bull down and I passed on taking a shot at a bull. We could have probably had both those bulls down, and Luis and Manano and them and Brendan hadn't even made it to camp. And all of a sudden, we get back to camp. They're coming into camp, and
In
we got to
street
load them up
clothes.
in street clothes. And we're like, man, we're glad to see y'all. Y'all showed up when the work started, right?
That's right.
So we load them up. They ain't even got to put camp together, and we got them in the grind already.
Right.
You know, putting them in there, toting quarters out. I mean,
And I wouldn't have had it any
up,
other way, man. That was
they
so
were
awesome
up
to
for
get
the
to
challenge.
come.
Yeah. When we talk about grinding, man, and it's really about a mindset, you know.
Absolutely.
That grind is, you know, got in the intro, I talked about, you know, getting my teams ready for a championship game. I don't have to do that. We've put in the work. You know, they have grinded all year, you know, to get to that level. So what we do is we just trust our training, and we get in there and we make, you know, as Luis alluded to, we make lemonade out of lemons, you know, no matter what, no matter if we're down, no matter if things look bleak. I mean, you just take a look at our hunt last year, Joe. We show up the first day, we get lost, okay, not really lost, but can't find where we really want to hunt, okay, and then the mule shuts down on us, okay, it quits. You got to get off, right? You got to get off and go back to camp, right? And
have to hike back about a few miles.
You got to hike a long way back to camp, 7 or some odd miles, right? So Joe's on a hike. Chav and I are sitting there, and I'm like, well, I guess we could sit here and feel sorry for ourselves, or we could let out a bugle and see what happens. And I'll be dang, we don't have one open up, you know? So shoot, I'm not wanting to get too far away because, you know, we don't know how long it's going to take to get you back. And and I had a mule deer tag at the time too.
Right.
Well, what I learned really quick was when you're calling elk, those mule deer are real inquisitive. Heck, I had a mule deer walk right out in front of me, and I did not have my bow, right? So we're sitting there at the bike. So at the end of the day, we could have let that be a huge impact on us because we had that problem. Then Chav got sick. I mean, we could go through a whole lot of things. But at the end of the day, grinding is just about taking every bit of obstacles that you could think of and setting it on you in camp, and you still get up every morning,
right?
Go out there and put it in.
And three bulls down in 4 days.
Exactly.
Right. Look, Gilbert, I mean,
no matter what.
It all started, like for me and mine, it started in friggin' Dallas, right? I mean, we were having issues with the vehicle, with the trailer, with the parts, and it just
easy to go King's X.
Oh my gosh, you know, blowing out tires. I mean, it just and then we got to camp, and then obviously, you know, celebration because you guys had a bull down, right?
I blew 4 tires out on the way to New Mexico.
Exactly,
and then rescue me.
And then so to your point, the tone and the atmosphere at camp could have gone completely sideways because it was tough. I mean, it was rough. I mean, the emotions, you know, you could sense a little bit of tension in the atmosphere because we were all worried about Chad. We were worried about, you know, not being able to have a means of transportation. I mean, things weren't shaping out the way we planned them. And then we were a bit concerned, right?
Yeah, but we dug down, made it happen.
Well, the one thing that is a known is you just get out doing what you do. And that's what we did. And, you know, for those people that think about that, how hard it is to get out of that tent, look, it's called a hunt. Nobody can guarantee that you're going to kill an elk, but I can guarantee you if you stay in that tent that you're not going to. Yeah. So you got to be in the woods.
Famous words of Carl Gamage.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee you can kill an elk, but I can guarantee you won't.
Yeah, exactly.
To me, you got to make sure. My mindset is I want no regrets on a hunt.
No doubt.
A perfect hunt for me is a hunt with no regrets, and that goes in so many levels. It goes about the shots you make, the decisions you make out there. It goes about everything, but also it goes about, look, I've got 7 effective days in 1 year that I dream for the entire year, and I'm gonna make sure, as hard as it is, that I give myself the opportunity during those 7 days, and I have no regrets of saying, man, I should have gotten up this morning and I didn't because I was too tired.
You know, I'll take it a step further, in that after I get done, I guide the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Me
I'm
too.
up in all kinds of weather, freezing, wet, horrible stuff. And I get up every morning to take somebody else like it's my hunt, you
And that's
know?
the way it
And
should
and
be.
and that's how I feel about it. I get up every day excited to take somebody to be out there because I have the opportunity to be in the woods and chase the most majestic animal there is, up close and personal, you know? And so a lot of those guys will be like, and this will put us right back into what we were talking about. We get up in the morning and they'll go, God dang, Joe, it's too windy, man. We ain't going to hear anything today, you
Right.
know?
Well, you sure
And
can't kill him from camp.
you're not going to kill him. But
Of
let me
course, if
tell
you
you
got
what.
Luis and Manano in camp, the food is amazing, right? So you can sure sit on your fat butt and go ahead and eat.
But let me tell you
Yeah.
what, guys, a windy day,
Jam up.
look, hunting is not just it's not just hearing an elk to the response. Remember, you use your eyes, your nose, you look for that sign, you catch that smell, and then when you start working the sign and you start working into those areas because you know they're going to be bedding in an area 80% of the day, you start getting in those bedding areas where now it starts to break the wind just a little bit. But if you can get on an animal where you catch a noise or you catch a sound or you catch a bugle just because you're in that vicinity
You
close
bet.
enough, and then you work in on that animal, the wind, man, gives you a huge advantage because I have found bulls in parks in the morning at daylight because I night bugled them, knew where they were. It got really, really windy. I'm on them at daylight. The wind is howling, and I stalk in on those boogers because they're not going to hear me. There's all kinds of things moving around them. So it gave me an advantage. You know, the
Yep.
wind's coming at me, so they're not going to smell me, right? It is a perfect stalking situation. It is a perfect elk killing situation if you do that.
I harken back to the first time that I had a friend with me, and I was hunting with him up there in New Mexico. Wasn't really guiding for money, but he was with me. I
Mhm.
was calling for him the whole 9 yards.
Right?
And it's the first time it was at least 40 to 50-mile-an-hour gusts. And he had a muzzleloader during muzzleloader season. We were easing down this draw, and I mean, had the wind in our face. I mean, it was like a gale force wind. So you couldn't have hurt a bull if you thought you could, right? I mean, it just all that commotion going on, right? Oh
Mhm.
no, buddy. Let me tell you something. Cal called one time, sure, and I'm telling you, it sounded like a symphony of bulls right in front of us, right? I mean, it was so loud. I went, oh my God, they must be stampeding us. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I told Jeremy, I said, get down, man. I'm like, they're coming right now. Well, no, they weren't. They were fighting out in the middle of this park, and there must have been 30 right out there. So when I figured it out, we just started using jack pines to get up on them. But it was so windy, they were sure as heck weren't paying attention to the noise we were making or the movement that we were moving, because everything's moving. We snuck in to within 112 yards of that bull, and he shot and killed that bull in a gale force wind.
I want to give people a nugget out of what you're talking about because it just brought something up to me that it happens all the time. Me and Chav do this all the time, where we are stalking in on a bull, and I've seen a lot of guys that when we're stalking, they want to go off to my right side or my left side and try to see the bull as we're stalking in.
Get right
And
behind you.
if you're buddying up, or even if you're triple, you you always
Train.
get right behind your person and right behind there, keep that bull right in between so you look like one object. You don't want multiple objects of movement. If you just stay right behind that front person screens for you and it makes you look like one object. So when I stop, we're all stopped, right? So that's something for you guys to think about when you're sneaking up as well. And
But
Chav's like so much smaller than me. You don't even see him, man.
Hey
right.
Joe, I was gonna say this past year, talking about getting up in the morning and grinding it and,
Uh-huh.
and getting ready to go out there and overcoming, your pain and your sores and all of that. I would like to ask Chav to share, because Chav wasn't feeling good, man. And
At
you
all.
couldn't hear a complaint from Chav, and he would get up every morning and get out there and get it done, you know, and do it with the team. And so I want to understand what he was going through, the pains he was going through, and the things that kept him moving.
Because
kept him
Chav
going.
had cancer and did not know it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, he's battling it the whole time up on the mountain with us.
Yes, sir.
So what was your motivation there, Cabez?
Well, I enjoy being out there, and I could sense the excitement that you guys are going through, and I was able to kind of live through that experience you guys were experiencing. Because just getting back to camp at night and talking about what happened during the course of the day, it was very interesting to me. And, it's like being out there. I can visualize where you guys are at. I can visualize the bulls coming. And, of course, you had video also.
Yeah.
And,
what was so special to me is I got to have Chav look right down my shaft right down the arrow shaft with me and calling out my yardage, the whole 9 yards, and him not feeling good at all, but he never backed down 1 inch.
Oh, I tell you what, at that point in time, I don't think Chav felt any illness at all.
That's right.
That adrenaline was blowing through all our veins, wasn't it, Chav?
All you could hear was the click, click, click.
It was quite an experience, especially with the group of people we have out there,
Unbelievable.
Yeah, admirable for sure. It's something that I'm like, and that's something I'll be thinking of next time I'm out there, right? I mean, I have no reason to complain about getting up and getting ready. I mean, just looking the way Chav did it, having cancer, not knowing, and still grinding through this. I mean,
if I could tell our listeners one thing, man, and it's one thing that Chav and I have been talking about a lot, is that, look, YOLO, you only live once, and you do not know how quick what we think we are capable of doing can be taken away from us. I mean, you have a guy sitting here with us that is a Hall of Fame cross-country runner that I have never worried about where I went, how far, how fast, how rugged, how tough. Never worried about it. Chav was always on my heels. And here he is now trying to relearn how to walk, man. So, when you guys get out there and you start to feel a little sore underneath here, or a little chafe over here, or a little tired because of this, suck it the daggum up. Get your knuckles bloody and get back out there, man. That's get back in the saddle.
I just
a lot of it.
Go ahead.
A lot of it, like you said, is learning to persevere. I know there were times, and I'm sure Manano and Luis and even Gilbert experienced it, where it's like you'd walk miles and miles and miles and haven't seen anything, and you're totally exhausted, and you're about ready to go back to camp, and you hear a bugle way out there somewhere. And you're like, oh, should I tell Joe?
We've talked about that 1,000 times.
Right. We do.
Yeah, for sure. No. And the answer is no.
The problem is Joe is starting to pick up on it. And now even if he's suspicious, he can read it off of her faces. And there we go anyway. We're still after that.
I can remember being at Tres Piedras up in northern New Mexico near Chama. And we were on a top of a big old mountain, and we were just kind of scanning, and Joe says, hey, there's some elk over there. And we go, where? And we looked out there, and it looked like it was 5 miles away. Just, you can barely see some dots out there. And sure enough, there were elk. And he says, let's go. And we're like, we're going. But, learn to persevere, because the moment you're ready to give up, an elk will appear. That's guaranteed almost.
Yeah, you're not going to kill them if you're watching them. Yeah. That's what I keep asking people. Do you want to look at elk or you want to kill them? So you got to make some decisions then, man. And like I said, it's we only have so much time in our life. We only get so many opportunities. And I can tell you this, Chav keeps telling me, and I keep looking at Chav and buddies of ours like Don Primley and Larry Gill, and Larry's in his 70s, and guys that are 10 years my senior, and I see how they're doing stuff, and I go, oh man, I think I got a few more years in the windshield. But I got news for you, man. Like I said, we do not know what tomorrow is going to bring. So
That's right.
today is a gift. That's why they call it the present.
Present.
There.
That's
So
right.
you got to take advantage of every day and every moment. All right.
Right.
I want to go back to some of these
Yeah.
things that we talk about, that we tell these guys, we're trying to help with some of those solutions with things. People, I hear a lot of times that it's just too hot or it's too dry, and so the bulls aren't rutting because it's hot and dry. And I think that lends itself more to what Gilbert was saying about the moon, is that when it's hot, them critters want to get in the trees sooner than later, right? Because in New Mexico now, y'all that are up there in Montana, you're in Wyoming, or you're in some of those other places, I imagine in your area it's the same way, that you get into the shade from the sunlight in the mountains, and it's a 10 to 15 degree difference.
Easy.
So
Yep.
those critters go find holes that they can get into. But I'm going to tell you that if animals if they didn't rut because of temperature, then they would never start screaming the way they do in Magdalena or down in Socorro, New Mexico, or in
Arizona.
Nevada, or in the flats of Arizona, when I mean it's cooking. And I mean, when that picture I showed you earlier of Joe Emmons, that's in Oregon, September 1st, 101 degrees. 101 degrees. So
Yeah.
it's not the temperature that has anything to do with the rut. The rut has to do with cows coming
Equinox.
in estrus, and they come in estrus around the equinox. That's it. End of story. Now, as you move further north, going up because of the changes of the daylight, then that rut can come in at different times. And what I mean by north is going up towards the Arctic, right? As you get up there, you get different amount of daylight, so it hits those cows differently. So yeah, that can change things a little bit. But
when your elevation too, your elevation will depict some of your temperature as well, Joe.
It'll depict temperatures, but it's not going to change the sun. And
No,
the
it won't
sun,
change the rut, right.
the sun hitting those cows' eyes, and that length of day is what creates that equinox.
That's right.
So that's kind of where I was going with that point. But
here's
when it's hot and dry,
Joe.
Huh? What's that?
I was going to say, here's a thought, though. I mean, whether it's hot, whether it's dry, whether it's rainy, whether it's the moon is out, whether we think we're close to the equinox or not.
Right.
It's not like when those conditions are not right, the elk completely vanish and disappear and they go under the earth.
Correct.
The elk are still out there in the woods, regardless of all these conditions. They're still out there.
We've hunted in all 3 or 4 of those scenarios you've listed, Joe, and we've killed bulls in every one, multiple bulls in every one.
There were people this year that was in a very wet year and had a lot of difficulty because the elk were not concentrated anymore in those traditional, because we've had a lot of drought in the few years. So it's been those better grass areas, it's been those better holes, it's been those better water areas where you've been finding all of the elk concentrated. When you get a wet year, they spread out and becomes a little bit more difficult sometimes to find them because they're not in the traditional areas.
Well, for us, it was hot. It was hot all year in the first part. I mean, it was smoking hot. I never seen it that hot. I mean, it's miserable to take a nap in. It's miserable to hunt in because you're sweating like a.
But it wasn't dry. But it wasn't dry.
I know what I was going to say.
But it goes back to everything you've preached on the podcast, guys. Is you understand elk behavior, you adapt. And then based on what you're seeing out there, based on what you're perceiving, then you come up, like you've said it before too, you got a plan A, you got a plan B, you got a plan C. Right. And then you keep evolving with the hunt based on the information that you're gathering day in and day out,
Right. So, and that's all about preparation, what you put in before you went hunting, understanding the area you're going to hunt, understanding where your herds like to be, the corridors they like to travel through, the water holes they like to use, the wallers they like to use, the ridges they like to bed on. All of that stuff goes into play. And look, elk are where they are. They're not super patternable. I mean, they're nomadic and they move, and there are a lot of
Well,
different.
especially during the rut, they're going to get
Yeah.
push.
Yeah.
Now,
Those
before
bulls
that,
don't travel.
you can mark them a little easier. Before that, they're going to have a little bit more of a pattern. But you're absolutely right. Once they start getting urges, man, they're moving, right?
Another thing I hear hunters talk about all the time, and look, when I've brought new guys in, I mean, Steve Tucker, Brendan Houlihan, even Luis and Mana, one of the big things that gets in their head quickly, and look, when I first started, it kind of did with me too when I was hunting public land, was running into hunters in your hunting area.
Right.
Because you are hunting public area. That gets in your head. I mean, too many hunters are in an area, guys feel like they can't kill a bull. Well, you can get that out of your mind real quick, right?
Oh, absolutely.
At the end of the day, they're going to help you if you learn how to hunt your areas.
Yeah,
right?
and the elk again are intelligent to people, and we talk about high use and low use areas, and I think a lot of people look at when they bump into a hunter, like that hunter is almost like I don't know if I want to say virus or whatever, but something that has tainted the whole place, and it's like elk are just going to run away from this area because there's an elk in it. And I'm going to tell you this, that's not the case. They're going to go where they want to go, to the bedding area they want to bed, to the water area they want to water, to the feed area they want to feed, and they're going to go around you. We tell that story all the time. This last year, we had just been with two other, I mean, there were the three of us, you, me, and Chav. We had been with, we had met up with Pat and Pat Jr., two other hunters in the area right there. We split up, and this is after being in the area all over.
Oh, yeah.
Called in
talking loud, talking, high-fiving the little man.
Called in two other hunters, remember?
Yeah, called
guys
in
coming
two
from
other
down below that turned and started going the other direction.
They were unsociable. I don't know whoever y'all were unsociable.
Unsociable guys. Well, we walked 200 yards, and I killed a bull.
100%. 100% true story.
Yeah, I mean, within 45 minutes. Yeah.
What's that, Chow?
I said it was within 45 minutes, maybe a half hour even.
Yeah. And it was only that long because, we hadn't gone 150 yards. I give a little call and we hear a bugle. So we're slowing up. We're working on setup. We're checking things out. So it was about 45 minutes, but I guarantee you we didn't go 200 yards, man.
I know.
And, Chav and I, the year before, I'm calling in a bull for Chav. The bull somehow circles by him, comes up towards me. I shoot him at 18 yards. We are high-fiving, talking. We have 5 other bulls come running into us while we're just talking and carrying on. I mean, it was a comedy. And then we ended up leaving to go back, and it wasn't 45 minutes later after I left, and it was not 200 yards away, Cav kills his bull. So, and guys, let me tell you, it's not that elk are just like running all over the place, man.
No,
it's just
ain't.
That
there's many days we go out and we don't see anything, or hear anything.
So I gotta say, Joe, that's one of the behaviors that I've learned from you. One of many, right? The first hunt I went out with you, I do remember it was a busy year. I mean, we bumped into a lot of people out in the woods that year. And my first reaction when we identified that was another hunter and we went into the call or they came into our call and we spotted them, I'm like, okay, let's turn around. Let's get out of here. Let's just not bump into each other. And, just kind of a little nervous and hesitant about not bumping into the other hunter. You did completely the opposite. And I was like, man, this is odd, right? So you went in, you introduced yourself, you had a conversation with them, you exchanged information, it made the conversation pleasant. And then y'all talked about y'all different strategies and what, we were going to do. And then we went in our different ways. Right. And you kept on doing this. And I'm like, hey, for everybody out there, everybody we bump into the woods, they know Joe Giglia. So it's Joe is very well known everywhere in those woods.
And very well received.
That's right. And so, it's something that I'm like, hey, this is a different approach and I like it. And case in point, last year you guys weren't in camp, and me, Manano, and Brendan went out, and we started calling, and then we heard responses, and then we started going in, and then we realized there were other hunters, and we're like, well, we'll probably we don't want to bust their hunt if they actually have elk coming in.
Correct.
So we're
right.
quietly
Absolutely.
move out, and then
Yeah.
we turn around trying to get out of their hunt just in case, because we were hearing bulls and bugles from different spots. So it's like, let's back out. Let's not ruin their hunt either.
Right.
And as we're backing out, we hear another bugle in a completely opposite direction from where these guys were at, which these guys weren't hearing that bugle. And we're like, oh, wow. So we went completely opposite direction, and we had a shot opportunity way in the opposite direction too. So, I mean, case in point to where even though there's other hunters out there, it's not, your hunt is not ruined. I mean,
absolutely not. And I want to clarify, so you guys that are listening understand too, when we have the situation, when I see other hunters, if I see other hunters and that hunter is engaged in a bull, I'm out of there.
Right.
I'm out of there. But if we're just working through the woods, or I call somebody in, or we see them working through, and there's not a bull, we haven't heard anything, we haven't engaged, the first thing I do is I give a little bit of a wave so that they can catch my movement. And then once I see that, I don't approach until, I know that those guys have seen my movement like that. Mm-hmm. So, and then, I have a philosophy that I want people to know that I'm in the woods for two reasons. We get to know people that way, but the other thing is they're going to go tell somebody else. So because they don't think the same way I do. And they're going to tell somebody, there's somebody that's already hunting. Yeah, I bumped into this guy hunting the woods over there. Yeah, this guy's staying right in that one area. Yeah, this guy's over there. And they kind of bounce back a little bit. It's almost like a bull bugling himself way to a herd and splitting the herd, It just kind of moves things to the side. It just kind of, they give you a little bit of a buffer zone in there. And if they don't, that doesn't bother me. I'm still planning on being on the elk before anybody else. Yeah. And that's what it's about. And it's been public land my whole life. And I just don't buy that too many hunters in an area ruin it. And I see, a lot of these guys that go into the high mountain areas of Colorado, and they think that if an elk sees people that they're going to freak out and they're just out of the country. Well, I got news for you, man. Colorado is one of the most highest outdoor recreationally used state there is, with hikers and bikers and everything up in those mountains. Those elk see people all year long, man.
They walk through the streets at Estes Park.
Yes, sir, they
Big
do.
Giant bulls walking lay down in people's yards.
They adapt, man. They adapt.
They don't care. I've been in Angel Fire and had them walk right through the middle of town.
Yeah, but worst case scenario, you're going to find, again, the majority of the people that you meet out there is good people too.
Great people.
Grinding it.
Absolutely.
And you're going to exchange information. Look, hey, there's some hunters out there that would just kind of, not share everything, and that's fine. But I mean, there is information to be shared anyway, and there's stuff to help out. And they know, if they know where you're camped and where they're camped,
to me,
you
Luis,
never know.
That's part of the, I love to play Texas Hold'em. So I like to be to read other people's faces, And I kind of like the old hunter's bluff stuff, I enjoy that. I find a way to get something out of their information anyway, like when I say, well, have you been over there? No, there ain't nothing over there.
And look, and since I've been using that in public land when I go hunting for pigs and stuff like that, I've bumped into great people out there and made good friends. I exchanged phone numbers with them. There's two guys right now that went out today to public land hunting, and they texted me before they went, and it's like, hey, we're going to be out there today. It's like, when are you planning on coming out? It's like, man, I can't make it, but you know what? Keep me posted, send me pictures, good luck, and then you exchange information. They're good people. And if you're ever in a situation where you need help and there is an emergency, you can call these guys and they would know exactly where you're at because they know the layout of the land in that area too. They can.
A real good friend of mine, Pat Martinez, I met Patrick up in the mountains years ago, and when I bumped into him, we were kind of talking about stuff, and I basically gave him the pattern of what was happening in the area so he could have some success. He was successful that year. He's been successful a lot of years after. And you know what? Um, it hasn't been a skin on my nose, off my nose, and that guy has had wonderful experiences. He's shared his experiences with other people.
Exactly.
He's a great person. He's a great friend. So,
What goes around comes around, Joe.
yeah, man,
Yes.
it's just that's how I feel about it.
I agree.
I think another thing that we hear a lot of times out there, the biggest thing when I bump into guys is the first thing most people are going to ask you are before they even ask you if you've seen anything. They're like, "Have you heard any bugles?" Right? You know,
Yeah.
and
My answer is always yeah.
yeah, a lot of these
I
guys.
have.
I-
You
I
hunt with
can-
Joe, you're going to hear a bunch of bugles.
I can tell you how many times we have just been in amongst them. I mean, in amongst them, screaming, going back and forth. Me and Chav, remember the time, man, that we were just going back and forth with that bull across the canyon?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And you leave that situation and you go 400 yards and you bump into a hunter. And we're like, well, how's it going for you? And it's like, I haven't heard a thing. They're just not
Yeah.
bugling.
Yeah.
So
Happens all the time.
this past year after the bull, I killed Joe. You know, the bull was too heavy. We had to put it on the four-wheeler. You were driving it down the bumpy road, and Manano and I took a shortcut through the mountains. And when we got out into the clear, kind of to meet you at the road crossing there, right there on the corner, there were two hunters sitting on the corner, just kind of, you know, stalking, just kind of waiting out and listening. And we bumped into them and it's like, have you guys seen any elk? I was like, yeah, we actually just bumped one on the way down the mountain. It was bedded probably 300, 400 yards from here. And he's like, really? We haven't seen anything. We haven't heard anything. And, you know, we'd seen a ton that morning and very close by. So that's
why I tell
another
them to be careful of letting other people's opinions or recon of nothing being in the area sway you. So and not that I'm saying that they're lying. It's just that there's some people that just haven't been in the
they will to you. They will lie to you.
Yeah,
I mean, listen, I fished professionally for a long while. And one of the first things I learned, my uncle taught me a long time ago, Skeeter Lothringer. He told me, he said, listen, don't listen to doc talk. Doc as in, you know,
Yeah,
the
right,
doc on
yeah.
the lake. Don't listen to doc talk.
Right.
It will throw you out of your game. You go fish your game. You'll fish your water. You fish against your fish. You ain't fishing against those fishermen.
Right.
You're fishing against the fish, right?
Right.
Don't listen to them. Number one, they don't want you to do good. And number two, they don't want to compete against you. So they're not going to probably tell you the truth all the time. Well,
Right.
man, I'm a truthful guy. If you come and ask me something and I don't want to tell you, I just say, look, I'd rather not say anything until after I'm done fishing or till after I'm done hunting. I'm not going to lie to you because I've had that happen to me.
Yeah,
I've had guys lie to me, and it's infuriating, right? It's almost just guys don't have integrity. So what I want to tell you is, you know, there's only a few things you got in this world, and it's your word, your integrity. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't want to say something to a hunter, you just let him know, man, I'd really rather not answer that question and just talk to you after we're done hunting. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but don't lie to somebody.
And
Don't just
you even
outright lie.
precede that with is look, man, you seem like a really, really great guy and all of that, man, but I don't want to tell you any lies or anything right now, and I got something working and I hope to, you know.
Yeah, and understand guys can't do what you do.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of guys can't do what you do. And, you know, I fished in a bass club, one of the best bass clubs in the world, the Houston Ormond's Bass Club, for a long time. And we shared a lot of information. And what led me into doing that, because coming from the competitive standpoint, we didn't do that. We didn't share a lot of information.
Right.
At the end of the day, it was about helping all the guys in our club become more successful and also learn more about fishing and the camaraderie and stuff like that. I tell guys all the time, man, I'm catching them. and you're lying to me. I'm like, I'm not lying to you. I'm telling you the truth. Come get in the boat with me, right? But I had skill sets that a lot of guys couldn't do, you know?
Right.
It's like you. I mean, hands down, when the chips are down and it's tough and you got to be able to finesse call and stuff, you know, when you got a guy like you that's in your hip pocket, it takes that hunt to the next level. So, so important for our guys to embrace the grind, understand the language, understand where they're hunting, man. And this all goes into just not giving up. Right.
And to your language point there, Beto, that's another excuse, right? You know, I'm not able to call. I don't know how to call. And I guess Chav and I can relate a lot to that potential excuse. And I don't know, Chav, what are your thoughts on ability to call and that being an excuse?
Have you been able to get on elk with what you do, Chav?
Well, yeah. It's a lot easier if I'm with you or Gilbert. No, I've had my share of you know, hunting by myself where, you know, I've killed a few elk and
sure.
And I've had many opportunities at a big bull.
we won't talk about the 3 knocks in the lap, huh? Well, we brought that stuff up before, man. Oh, that's why we had to cure that whole knock thing this last year, huh?
No doubt.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Look, I'm gonna tell you right now, when I hunt with Chav, if we can see a bull, he's in a lot of danger. Chav is one of the very best hunters at closing the gap and being undetected, right? And he understands how to use the forest, how to use the landscape. He understands where he's hunting, number one. He knows what those elk's pattern, their habits are going to be. It's tremendous to watch. I've had such good teachers, but he is one of the best woodsmen I've ever hunted with. So when you're with him, and he's made this comment several times, he said, we don't even really have to, if we see a bull's in a lot of danger.
Yeah, right. And you don't have to say anything.
We don't have to say a word.
Yeah,
we just work in there.
Especially when you have somebody like Gilbert that can make that long shot.
Yeah. Well, you got to have ice water in your veins when you do that stuff. But when you hunt with guys like Joe and you practice with guys like Luis and y'all go to the bow zone and you're competing against one another, and those kinds of things drive me all year to when, again, it's just like when we prepare our team for that championship game.
That's right.
Those things drive you all year to when you draw that bow back and you center it up, no matter how far it is, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, it doesn't matter. When you figured it out and you got him in your sight, you touch it off and you know it's money, right? And I've had Chav with me time and time again, you know, so he's one of the best at doing that.
Awesome, man. And I hope we've hit the topic for y'all listening tonight. We haven't done this in a while, so we're going to end right there for that part of the show, and we're going to head into our ElkBros mailbox because we've had some people that have been lined up for a while now trying to get some questions in. And
I'm going to talk all night, Joe. We can just turn this into
oh man, poor guys, man. We'd never answer these questions, man. But
we got to do one live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, listen, you guys that are out there listening to this, let us know. Would you like to have that happen? Would you like to have a live broadcast and interact or take part with that? Maybe be able to throw questions out to us. We'd like to see if that's an interest, and if it is, maybe that's something that we'll talk about doing. So going to the ElkBros mailbox, here's the lineup for the team today. Up first is going to be John Jones. We've got Joe Emmons. Then we're going to hit a section on arrows and broadheads with Steven Sanders, Paul Perkey, Tim from Abbotsford, and Jason Schultz. After them, in the lineup is Mike Wilson, Aaron T., Ryan Foster, and Felipe Perez from Miami, Florida. And we want to give you that lineup because if we don't get to you this evening, we're going to get you on the next show. Some of these are going to go quick. Some of them are going a little bit longer. But John Jones sent a letter in, and I thought it was a real quick one for us to be able to answer and get this out of the way. But he says how much he really loves the shout-outs, but he pointed out something that I have mentioned before is that he said the shout outs are very appreciated and anticipated. an important part of the podcast. Not too many podcasts take the time to thank their fans, but there are guys like me in tiny towns that will never make the most listeners list. LOL. and
Touche,
he's got a great point. Y'all, there are a ton of cities that do not get registered with us because they get actually they have to go through a router in a big city, so they never even get their name registered with us. So
Right.
there's hundreds of cities out there that just come in as Dallas or come in as Albuquerque or come in as Denver. So I have said this to those people, to you guys out there that live in small towns like you and me. Cimarron here is 900 people, no stoplight. You stick your head out of town, your head out the window, you're out of town. So here's what I tell you. Send us your village, town, or city name, along with some things people wouldn't know about your town, special places, people, things, activities, mysteries, history, anything special about it. The reason is that you love it, where you live, and we will put you on there and give you a shout out. So just do that, man. Okay.
That's a very good point, Joe. I'm glad he mentioned that because
Yeah, man.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's awesome. So first question up, you saw his picture earlier from Joe Emmons from Albany, Oregon. He says, guys, I've been hunting for the last 4 years with one other bro, my son. He's old enough this year to join us, and some other buddies have been interested in joining the group. I wanted to get your take on the setup and strategy for 3 guys, 2 shooters, or 1 shooter, 2 callers, how to communicate and how to make it work as a group. And Joe, we do this all the time, man. I mean, when Gilbert shot his bull this year, we had 5 guys in the woods. Generally, there's going to be 3 of us together a lot of times. Sometimes we are only 2 of us. It just depends on how the kills go. If we can lower the amount of numbers in the woods, we do. But now we're at the point where we got to have a cameraman with us. And so that adds a whole different element to that. So what I'll tell
As
you
if
is this.
it wasn't easier.
and I'll tell you, there's you'll hear some people talk and say that they do not like having 2 shooters because they always worry about one person is worrying about what's happening with the other guy. Are they going to shoot? Is it in the clear? Is it, there's questions that go in the mind, and so they worry about, or they end up blowing the situation. Some people will never do 2 shooters like that. Myself, because I'm a guide, when I do a 2-on-1 with me, I have this all the time. And what I actually like to do is I like to punch one guy dead straight in front between me and that bull, and I like one guy to go dead straight out and then downwind from that guy 30 to 40 yards. And you have to know where each other are, because you do not want a bull to come in between you. Now, this is archery. This is not rifle. If it's rifle, we're doing things way differently. But we always say who our shooter is for each encounter, not for each day, for each encounter, because you could have multiple in a day. But if I'm doing 2, I like to do it that, or sometimes I'll give them the signal and we do a flying V. So basically they're going from me, the elk is straight in front of me, and they're going to V out to the side, because what I have found a lot of times is that animal will try to circle from one side to the other. If he does come right down the chute to the middle, both guys are going to have an opportunity. And it is our rule that when you have a ethical, responsible, effective killing shot, you shoot it.
Take it.
Because we are a team. We're going to put the elk on the ground. If you got problems with guys being selfish, you need to find other guys to be in your group. And I don't mean selfish by them taking the shot. I mean them selfish by being upset because their buddy took the shot because it was the shot to take. I mean we're happy for each other. If it doesn't go right, then crap happens,
Look,
man.
I've been hunting with Joe, and early in the morning, we got a bull coming to us, and he's like, you're up, you're up. I'm like, listen here, buddy. We're going to kill this bull, either you or me. I don't care who's up. But if the bull goes left, I'm going to shoot him. If the bull goes right, you're going to shoot him. That's how it's going to work. We did all of that with the bull streaming down our neck, man. I mean, he is coming. Seriously, the bull is coming in, and we're watching him from 80 yards out, and he is hustling, coming at us. And Joe's like, you're up, you're up. I'm like, are you out of your mind, dude? If this bull turns left, I got him. If he goes to the right, because we're set up across the road, right? And that's exactly how we had our conversation. Y'all can all have that conversation, but you probably ought to do it before the bull starts running.
Absolutely, man.
Manano and I never argue. And we were just happening to argue about who's going to be next.
Lightning just struck, bro.
His nose is growing as he's talking.
Manano and I went into a similar argument. I was like, no, you go next. And he was like, no, you go next. And Joe was just getting upset. You two, stop fighting. You two, get out there, and whoever gets the shot, take it. Because we were wanting to give each other the shot. So, I mean, our issue was completely the opposite.
As a team, our goal is to put an elk down on the ground, man, as a team. Yeah. So, and that's the way it's done. And we're going to pack it out as a team as well. So, and then that means, if Luis kills one first, he's the guy that's going to be staying at camp after that. So, it's
not by itself.
It's not always the grand thing it seems to be sometimes, man.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, look, that's the cool thing about, really why you want to figure out who you're hunting with, and then having those conversations.
Joe, the 1 shooter 2 caller is incredibly effective as well. That's when, in fact, Luis and I have done that. We were actually 5 guys together, and 4 of us. I'm sorry, 4 of us together.
Yes, 4.
We put 2 shooters out front. Me, Luis went back, and we put on a show. And, it sounded like a herd bull with a hot cow with another bull that's starting to challenge. I could actually sound like more than 1 bull out there. And we started to have that happening there. Next thing you know, here they come, man, because those satellites are coming in, and we have shot opportunity. So
it sounded like a half a bull.
Chav.
Yeah.
We've done that, you and I, for Chav. Put on a show.
As far as the communication too, you set up signals. Like, let's say that I'm the shooter that's up front, and that bull starts to move, and I need to move up to it, or he's hanging up a little bit, or I want to get a different position, and I'm going to move up. Well, I might do something like 3 cow calls that is going to let my my caller know that I'm moving up, so that they can come and move up with me like that too. Or I can do that as a caller. I can give 3 cow calls to get their attention and move them up, because the cow calls, 3 cow calls is going to be something that's going to help a situation, not hurt a situation. And Chav and I have this thing where I crow call. He does this little turkey pick type thing, and we know that when we hear each other. And so you just got to develop those signals and hand signals ahead of time. We do things like people, they think that's like the rad symbol, but for us, man, that's an elk bugle. If we go like this, it's a cow call, because there's things I don't hear that these guys are trying to tell me, right, sometimes. So we develop signals, or, and we'll do something like it's a smooth head, or it's a cow, and in what direction, 100 yards, 200 yards. So just develop those. And all of those can happen. Your boy being with you in this group is going to enhance the situation, because you guys are going to have memories together. And
one thing you do, Joe, that is very cool when you have the opportunity, and there's an opportunity to actually have that quick conversation, is obviously, as I'm learning, you told me what scenario we were trying to paint.
Right.
You said, hey, this is the scenario we're painting. This is what we're doing. This is how we're going to try to bring them in. I'm going to, kind of do this, and you're going to try to respond to that, and so on and so forth. And let's go, and then we break out. And I kind of understand to follow your lead with regards to what kind of calling strategy we're applying at that time.
Absolutely.
If you got the opportunity to have that discussion prior to breaking out, then the more the better.
Right. And people that listened to our last podcast heard some of those strategies where I tried to sound like a bull with a hot cow with other bulls coming into challenge, putting on a show in that way. And you know, even like, you know, Chav has that hoochie mama for years, man. I mean, he can throw that in, you know, as well while I'm doing that. Just anything to paint the picture of a herd back there being worked. Right.
Mr. Emmons, I got one other thing to tell you. You say you're going to involve your son. I would assume he's 9 to 12 years old.
He's 12 years
13.
old now. He's 12.
Okay, he's 12 years old. The one thing I would let you in on is, man, you know, he can do some of the things you can do, but he can't do them all. So what I will tell you is you probably ought to set this up so he's the one that you're focusing your time on. Right. There's no doubt you're going to get some opportunities between there. But for him to really embrace this deal, make it about him. And you will have a time of your life.
You know, one thing that I threw out to him, though, when I heard the kid call, when I heard Parker call, was the first thing. I think things a little reverse, like Luis says, is that you want to empower Parker. You want to see the pride in a young man. Let him call in a bull for you.
You bet, man.
You know, trust him. You guys have those kind of, and it's not always going to be there, but he's going to learn so fast. And he's going to become such an asset that the first time he calls in a bull for his father to kill, it's going to be, look, I've called in for Luis, I've called in for Chav, I've called in for Gilbert, I've called in for Manano. When they take a bull, that is my coup. That's my bull, man. And even when they don't, that's my bull, because I get so pumped to do that I guarantee you, man, it will create, if that ever comes to fruition, Joe, if you and Parker ever have a situation where Parker here calls one in for you and that happens,
it's gonna happen.
You had better give me a phone call, because I am going to flip, man, and go crazy. I'm going to be so pumped, because that is going to be a memory that you guys are going to cherish the rest of your life. It'll never be forgotten. Just like that photo, I can see right now, I'm looking at it, at Joe with his boy right here with that bull down and the smile on both their faces. Man, it's a life changer, and it's going to ripple through eternity. So what I'm going to tell you is to involve your son, and I know he's practicing to pull his bow back. He's pulling 49 pounds right now, I think is what it is, y'all. So, I know that he's getting to where he wants to get his animal, but it doesn't have to be that way. You're a team.
Yep.
He can call in for you too, Bo. So,
no doubt.
Y'all have a great time with that. This next thing is a group of questions about arrow and broadheads. So what I'm going to kind of do is I'm going to kind of go through and read each person's there, because a lot of this we can answer in one hit and some of the different things. So Steve Sanders from Albany, Oregon, he says, is that really Albany? That's where Joe was from, Emmons. So I hope I didn't, I hope I got that right there. I don't know if I stuck somebody else's city and state there, but Steven Sanders, he says, thank you for your show. One quick question. What brand of fixed broadhead do you prefer to hunt with? Thanks again. Please keep up the awesome job. Then we have Paul Perky. So we have one about brand of broadhead. Then Paul Perky from Leveland, Colorado says, guys, I'm going to change my arrows out. Can you give me some advice, arrow advice, please? And I know you guys responded to him on this, and I'm going to talk about that response here in a second. But we wanted to share this with everybody. Then Tim says, my question is, when you go out elk hunting, how many arrows do you take with you? It only takes one, right? Okay, so good point. And then Jason Schultz from Salem, Connecticut said he remembers me stating in an earlier podcast. He says, I remember Joe stating in an earlier podcast about being sentimental, and I too still shoot the double X75 and 78 game getters that I grew up using for whitetails, and they work just fine. And getting into elk, are they acceptable for using, or should I beef it up to maybe a carbon core aluminum arrow? I do use a cut on contact G5 Montec 100 grain broadhead, and wonder if I need to beef that up as well. Now we got this about broadheads and we got this about arrows, right? And we had Paul that when he asked about arrows. So guys, here's one thing I told Paul is I want you to look in this whole group, and I am not the scientist out of the group. I shoot instinctive, no sights, bare bow, and I get a good heavy arrow with a 125 grain wasp broadhead on it. And Jason, I would still be shooting XX75s if it wasn't for a drug pusher from Spring, Texas that got me got me hooked on carbon.
Give him a little crack and they'll always come back.
but I killed 24 elk with double X75s. They're fine, okay? But I am not the scientist. You know, I'm not the Luis Gonzalez that is going to measure,
build his own arrow.
He knows every arrow down to the grain, man, and he's, you know, I put together and I tell guys, you shoot what shoots best out of your setup. Now these guys have some things there, and I'll just tell you, I shoot a 30 inch and a half 350 Carbon Express, thanks to Gilbert there, and I have always shot 125 grain broadheads. I shoot a little over 70 pounds on my bow, and I tell you what, it just hammers like that. So I like 125 grain myself, because before all this, front of center stuff started to happen, forward on center, I've always been using a little heavier up front, and that's just how I go. Gilbert, Brando, what do you have to say to these guys about arrows and broadheads?
Well, it really depends on their setup, Joe. I'd like to know what he's pulling, how many pounds he's pulling. But look, it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I shoot a heavy arrow. I shoot a full metal jacket, 60, Easton full metal jacket. I shoot a 30 and a half to 31 inch draw Matthews Helium. It's about a 6.5, 7-year-old bow. It's at about 72 pounds when the string's fresh. It's probably 68 to 70 right now. It's about 89 to 90 KE. And I shoot a full metal jacket 340. And I shoot a fixed broadhead, a fixed cut on contact broadhead. Looks a lot like a G5 striker. I don't shoot the Montec G5s. I have, and I just don't get a very good blood trail. It seals up. So I switched and I went to a Bloodsport broadhead now. Terry Hartcraft built the broadhead. It's called the Hartcraft Deep Cut. They were bought by Pradco. Bloodsport's now making it as the Bloodsport Reckoning. It is the best flying fixed head I have ever shot, and I shoot consistently 90 to 100 yards in practice. The thing that it doesn't do is it doesn't plane at distance. Most of your bigger cut on contact broadheads will plane at a certain distance. They'll take that arrow and it'll start diving one way. The thing I love about this head is it penetrates like no other. For me, you've come down here and hunt our little pesky pigs. They're tough, right? Mm-hmm. They're tough to blow through. And if you can blow through a hog's shoulder with a broadhead, this is the one that can do it, right? Now, we shoot a big, heavy bow. Both Luis and I do. Even Chav's shooting a helium now. So at the end of the day, those bows are hammers, and the lesser pound that you shoot, the lesser KE.
Because I think Chav's at, 60 Chav about?
Yeah, right around 60, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I would tell guys, if you're not shooting over 55 pounds, I would not shoot a punch cut. I would shoot a fixed on contact. Joe shoots an absolute hammer, which is a punch. You can shoot that punch cut at anything you want to with that hammer of a bow, right? I'm a big fan of a Muzzy Trocar too, punch cut broadhead. So those are the two broadheads that I shoot, and I only shoot full metal jackets. It's heavier. Could I shoot a carbon? Absolutely. Love them, right? But I hunt elk every year, and I don't like changing my setups. So I just hunt with the full metal jacket and those Bloodsport broadheads. Luis,
and I think you're pretty much lined out the same way, aren't you, Luis?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. Everything Gilbert said. Look, and when I started hunting, he lined me up with that setup, and trust me, I've looked into it, and I've tried changing it, and try looking for better options out there, and I don't think I found a better setup and one that I'm most comfortable with. This setup has been effective for me. Same full metal jacket for sure. I do shoot that same broadhead, though I'm interested in that G5 striker after the conversation with Paul there.
I like the striker.
Yeah,
the first bull I took with Joe was with a striker.
They did some upgrades to that Bloodsport array. It used to be called the Wraith. Now it's called the Reckoning. And I think that what they did is for the better.
The only thing I would change, Jason, on that is I would go to a 125 grain. That's just me. That's my personal preference.
Yeah,
I still like the way.
And again, it depends, like Gilbert said, on his draw weight and his draw length and all that stuff. Right. Because if you put it too heavy on the front and then you have already too heavy of an arrow.
Right.
See, Beto's arrows weigh probably 500 to 510 grain, right? Mine are 495, and it just obviously because his is longer, and you have grains per inch on length of the arrow. So
mine weigh about. I look at it and it's about that. They weigh about
that.
They weigh
about that much. So, you pick up a rock and then you compare it.
It's
kind of how much.
And look, guys, I shoot every one of my arrows in practice, and I have them numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6. So answer that other questions. I carry as many as my quiver will hold, and I number them on the way that they fly. Right. Yeah. I know which one that I want to have on deck first, and it's numbered on my fletching. Right.
And I carry 4 broadheads and 1 judo because I stump shoot, and Tim asked me about that. He says, "What is stump shooting?" I mean, it comes from back in the day when guys used to shoot at stumps with a blunt tip as practice, and I use things like bushes, flowers, cow patties with a judo point while I'm out in the field, and it really helps me to stay on. But you're right. It only takes one, and I tell a story when I first started hunting and I was hunting deer. I bumped into a bunch of boys out in the woods, and they looked at my bow and they saw my only 2 arrows that I had with 2 broadheads, and they were like, "Well, you're a little short on ammo, aren't you?" And I gave them the same answer that Tim said there. It only takes one. And that afternoon I was driving out with the deer, and they were like, "Well, I guess you were right." It only takes one. So, but now, I mean, those extras are, if I end up running into a bear, I have a bear tag. If I end up in a situation, my bow is my gun. That's my weapon. So if I end up in any kind of bad situation, it's going to be my bow that's going to get me out of it. So I need a few bullets in case I need to get out of it. So, but like Gilbert says, better to have it and not need it than need it and
not have it. Like a great hand.
And Chav, I just want to thank you for being here tonight, man.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
And you got to satisfy the thirst of these people, Chav, man, because I keep hearing people like, "I can't wait to hear Chav's voice,"
That was fun being back on.
Oh man, it's so awesome to have you. I want all of our listeners to know how much we appreciate you, and we know you've been praying for Chav, and so glad to see you. What a great blessing to have him on today. And I want Mike Wilson and Aaron T and Ryan Foster and Felipe Perez to know that we're going to get to their questions next week on our show for sure.
For sure.
Guys, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe, rate, and review. You got to go to Apple Podcast or iTunes to review us. And you can check out more elk hunting content at ElkBros.com. And just a reminder, man, if any of our listeners would like to have their questions answered on the show, please send your questions to info@elkbros.com. That's info@elkbros.com. Tons of content this week, guys. Unbelievable to have Chav and Luis and Joe keep putting out great content. I hope our guys got what a grinder is really all about. It's all about the preparation and embracing the grind. I know we're up against it, Joe. So like I've been telling everybody, this practicing our social distancing, wives wave at your husbands, husbands wave at your wives, maybe fist bump your children, keep your broadhead sharp and your powder dry. And we'll see you next week right here on Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Adios.
Peace, guys.
Peace, y'all.